Your mind is not the loyal ally you assume it is. It has a long history of sabotaging you, limiting you, confusing you, and turning your own thoughts into weapons pointed directly at your potential. Most people never realize this. They blame circumstances, other people, bad habits, lack of motivation, or bad luck. They never look in the one direction that matters, inward. The war you think you're fighting out there is nothing compared to the war happening inside your head. And if you don't understand how that war works, you will keep losing battles you never needed to fight in the first place. This audiobook is not meant to comfort you. It's meant to expose you, to show you the brutal mechanics of the mind that quietly shape your entire life. If you're ready for the truth, keep listening. Chapter 1. The Enemy. You don't see. The most dangerous enemy is always the one you don't recognize. And unfortunately, the enemy inside your mind is skilled at hiding in plain sight. It doesn't show up like a threat. It doesn't attack you directly. It doesn't shout warnings or expose its intentions. Instead, it camouflages itself as your own voice. It blends into your thoughts so naturally that you never stop to question who is actually speaking. That's how it wins. Quietly, consistently, patiently. Your mind's primary job is survival, not success. It is designed to keep you alive, not help you grow. So when it detects anything unfamiliar, uncertain, or demanding, it automatically labels it as dangerous, even if it's exactly what you need to move forward in life. This is why you can know what to do, you can want to do it, and you can even feel motivated to do it yet still find yourself stuck. You're not lazy. You're not broken. You're being manipulated by an internal force that pretends to be your reasonable thinking. The disguise your mind wears is extremely convincing. It wears the mask of logic. This isn't the right time. It hides behind the mask of caution. What if you fail? It speaks through the mask of self-protection. Don't push yourself too hard. These messages feel wise, even caring. But beneath them is fear, not intelligence. Beneath them is avoidance, not strategy. Your mind will sell you counterfeit wisdom packaged as protective advice. And you believe it because you've never learned to separate the voice of fear from the voice of truth. The mind has countless ways to sabotage you, and almost all of them feel harmless at first. It whispers, "Just relax today, start tomorrow." The first time, you think it's no big deal. The second time, you think you deserve a break. The third time, you tell yourself you'll start fresh next week. Before you realize it, a month has passed and you're exactly where you were before. Except now you're more disappointed, more frustrated, and more convinced that something is wrong with you. That's the enemy's goal, to stop you from noticing the damage until you're already trapped. Your mind uses delay as a weapon. It uses confusion as a trap. It uses doubt as a barricade. It will give you 1,000 reasons to postpone important decisions, to avoid uncomfortable opportunities, to stay exactly where you are, even when you claim you want change. This internal resistance is subtle enough that you don't question it. You don't fight it. You simply accept it as your personality. But it's not your personality. It's your conditioning. It's your fear wearing your own voice like a mask. One of the most common tricks this enemy uses is rationalization. Your mind will fabricate complex explanations to justify simple fear. Instead of admitting you're afraid to start something new, it convinces you the timing isn't perfect. Instead of admitting you fear judgment, it tells you you're still planning or preparing. Instead of admitting discomfort, it tells you you're not ready. These rationalizations keep you in place because they sound intelligent. You're not avoiding the gym. You're waiting until things slow down at work. You're not procrastinating your goals. You're waiting for inspiration. You're not scared of making a change. You're analyzing your options. All lies, all masks. The truth is, you're being pulled between two forces inside your mind. One side wants growth. It pushes you toward discipline, responsibility, and long-term thinking. It wants you to take control of your life, build your potential, and become someone stronger than your excuses. This side is your higher mind, the part of you that knows who you could be. The other side wants comfort. It pushes you toward ease, distraction, and immediate gratification. It wants you to avoid anything that feels heavy, uncertain, or demanding. This side is your survival mind. The part of you that is wired to protect you from discomfort, even when that discomfort is the gateway to your better future. These two sides are constantly at war, and whichever side you feed becomes stronger. Most people unknowingly feed the comfort side every single day. They choose what feels good over what moves them forward. They choose the temporary relief of avoidance over the long-term reward of growth. They choose the illusion of safety over the reality of opportunity. Over time, this transforms the mind into a hostile environment where progress feels impossible and self-sabotage feels automatic. But here's the part that's hardest to accept. The enemy inside you is entirely predictable. It uses the same tactics repeatedly. It knows exactly when to attack, usually when you're tired, uncertain, overwhelmed, or stepping into something new. It knows your weaknesses, it knows your patterns, it knows your emotional triggers. And it knows you won't question it because it speaks with a voice you trust more than anything else, your own. To win this internal war, you need to develop the ability to separate your true intentions from the lies your mind tells you. You need to recognize that there's a difference between your desires and your fears. You want to grow, but your mind wants to protect you from anything that feels like a threat, even if that threat is simply the discomfort of becoming a stronger version of yourself. Awareness is the first weapon. You cannot defeat an enemy you refuse to acknowledge. When you start noticing the patterns, when you catch the moments where reasoning is masking fear, you break the illusion of control your mind has over you. You begin to see that not every thought deserves your trust. Not every hesitation is meaningful. Not every doubt is true. Some of them are traps. The moment you realize this, you gain power. The moment you recognize the enemy, you weaken it. Because awareness separates you from your thoughts. It gives you the ability to observe instead of obey, to challenge instead of accept, to act despite fear instead of because of it. The enemy you don't see controls you. The enemy you expose loses its grip. And this chapter is your first step toward exposing the part of your mind that has been quietly directing your life for years. Once you understand how this enemy operates, you will never look at your thoughts the same way again. Chapter 2. The Lies. Your mind cells. Your mind lies to you far more than you realize. And the problem isn't just that it lies. It's that the lies sound reasonable. They sound familiar. They sound like the kind of thoughts any normal person would have. That's what makes them dangerous. If someone else lied to you as consistently as your mind does, you'd cut them out of your life without thinking twice. But when the lies come from inside, you treat them as truth. You obey them. You let them shape your decisions, your confidence, your actions, and eventually your entire identity. The enemy in your head doesn't need to shout to deceive you. It only needs to sound believable. The mind uses lies as protective shields. Its goal is to keep you within predictable limits where nothing feels threatening. Anytime you try to step outside those limits, whether you're starting something new, taking a risk, or simply improving your life, your mind immediately fabricates reasons to pull you back. And these reasons don't appear as fear. They appear as logic. That's the trick. The lies are never obvious. They come dressed in rational explanations that feel intelligent. One of the biggest lies your mind tells you is that you're not ready. It will repeat this in different forms. You need more time, more information, more preparation, more confidence, more clarity. It convinces you that the perfect moment is somewhere in the future, and until then, everything should be paused. But ask yourself, when has your mind ever declared that you are ready? It doesn't, because not ready is not a feeling. It's a mental trap. You don't feel ready before action. You feel ready because of action. The mind reverses this truth deliberately because keeping you stuck is safer than letting you change. Another lie your mind sells is that the worst-case scenario is likely. It exaggerates danger, amplifies uncertainty, and projects catastrophic outcomes that almost never happen in real life. It tells you that failing will ruin everything, that taking a chance will expose you, that people will judge you harshly, that embarrassment is fatal. None of this is true. But the mind is not concerned with truth. It's concerned with stopping you from doing anything uncomfortable. So it dramatizes risk and hides potential. It magnifies what could go wrong and minimizes what could go right. This is not caution. This is fear, dressed up as wisdom. Your mind will also lie about your abilities. It tells you I can't when the real truth is I don't want to try. It tells you I'm not good enough when the truth is you haven't practiced enough. It tells you I always fail when the truth is you've avoided the very things that would allow you to succeed. The mind uses insecure language not because it's honest, but because insecurity keeps you predictable. It's easier to convince yourself you're incapable than to confront the effort and discomfort required to grow. One of the most destructive lies your mind tells is that there's no point in trying. When you make one mistake, it tells you you've already ruined everything. When something feels difficult, it tells you that you're not meant for it. When the process takes longer than expected, it tells you success is impossible. This lie kills progress more effectively than anything else. Your mind knows that if it can convince you to give up early, it never has to deal with the discomfort of long-term effort. The mind is also skilled at lying about your emotions. It convinces you that your feelings are facts. If you feel anxious, it tells you something must be wrong. If you feel uncertain, it tells you the decision must be bad. If you feel uncomfortable, it tells you to retreat. But emotions are reactions, not instructions. They reflect your conditioning, not your reality. The mind wants you to obey your first emotional impulse because that keeps you safe and small. When you treat your emotions as truth, you surrender control. Another subtle lie is comparison. Your mind tells you other people are better, faster, smarter, more talented, more disciplined, more fortunate. It convinces you that you're behind, that you lack something essential, that you're an exception to growth and improvement. But comparison is a mental illusion. It only highlights selective information. You see others' results but not their struggle. You see their confidence but not their insecurity. You see their achievements but not their failures. The mind lies to you through comparison because it knows envy and inferiority weaken you, and a weakened you is easier to control. There's also the lie of later. Later is the biggest lie your mind uses to destroy your potential. It tells you you'll start tomorrow, or next week, or when things calm down, or when you feel ready. But later is just a softer version of never. Later gives you temporary relief from discomfort. It gives you the illusion of intention without the reality of action. You think you're postponing. You're actually surrendering. Later is the enemy's favorite weapon because it feels harmless, yet it steals years of your life without you noticing. So why do these lies work so effectively? Because they speak the language you trust most, your own thoughts. And because you've spent years believing them, they feel familiar. The mind repeats them until they become part of your inner dialogue. You stop questioning them because they've shaped your identity. If your mind says you're not confident, you accept the label. If it says you're not capable, you stop trying. If it says the risk is too big, you walk away. These lies quietly limit the kind of life you allow yourself to live. But here's the truth your mind doesn't want you to realize. Its lies lose power the moment you start questioning them. When you pause and ask, "Is this true or just fear talking?" you interrupt the automatic pattern. You create distance between yourself and the thought. And in that distance, you find clarity. You begin to see the lies for what they are, protective mechanisms that are outdated, exaggerated, or simply false. Once you recognize these lies, you can replace them with truths grounded in action. You don't need to feel ready to begin. You don't need to avoid discomfort to be safe. You don't need perfect confidence to take the first step. You don't need to believe your negative thoughts to keep moving. The mind's lies may feel powerful, but they are only powerful when you act on them blindly. The enemy inside your head uses lies to keep you from becoming the person you were meant to be. But when you expose those lies, you take back control. You stop living as a victim of your inner narrative and start living as the author of it. The war isn't over, but now you understand the weapon your mind uses most often. And understanding is the beginning of winning. Chapter 3. The War Between Comfort and Potential. Every human being is trapped between two powerful forces that pull in opposite directions. One force pushes you toward everything you're capable of becoming. The other pulls you back into the familiar, the easy, and the safe. This is the war between comfort and potential, and whether you realize it or not, it's the defining battle of your entire life. Every choice you make, every habit you build, every opportunity you take or reject is shaped by which force wins in that moment. Your potential is the version of you that exists beyond fear, beyond excuses, and beyond old patterns. It's the part of you that wants more strength, more discipline, more growth, more purpose. Your potential pushes you forward. It encourages you to take risks, to learn new skills, to build new habits, to break harmful cycles. It doesn't care about your comfort, it cares about who you can become. Comfort, on the other hand, is the version of you that wants to stay exactly where you are. It wants quiet, safety, familiarity, and ease. It avoids challenge, resists change, and retreats from anything that feels uncertain. Comfort isn't evil, it's just primitive. It comes from a part of your mind that only understands survival, not fulfillment. And because comfort is immediate and effortless, it often feels more convincing than the slow, demanding path toward your potential. The problem is simple. Comfort is seductive. It offers quick relief, short-term pleasure, and the illusion of safety. It tells you that avoiding discomfort is smart, that staying the same is reasonable, that delaying your goals is harmless, but comfort has a cost. For every moment you choose it, you sacrifice a moment of growth. For every day you surrender to it, you drift further away from the person you could become. Over time, comfort becomes a silent prison, one you don't even realize you've built around yourself. The war between comfort and potential happens every day in small decisions. You feel it the moment you wake up when your alarm rings. One side says get up and start your day with purpose. The other side says stay in bed for a few more minutes. You feel it when you sit down to work. One side says focus, be disciplined, get it done. The other side says check your phone, take a break, do it later. You feel it when you think about improving your life. One side says do it now. The other side says wait. You know exactly which side usually wins. People tend to think that big failures ruin lives, but most lives are ruined by small decisions repeated consistently. Not because they are catastrophic, but because they strengthen the wrong side of the battle. Every time you choose comfort over potential, you reinforce the habits of avoidance. You teach your mind that discomfort is dangerous and should be escaped. You make it harder to change, harder to grow, and harder to trust yourself. As a result, you end up living a life built on fear rather than ambition. Your goals remain ideas instead of realities. Your dreams remain fantasies instead of achievements. You convince yourself that you're stuck, when in truth you've simply surrendered to the weaker parts of your mind. But here's the part you need to understand clearly. Growth never feels comfortable. If it did, everyone would be disciplined, successful, confident, fulfilled, and strong. Growth demands pressure. It demands effort. It demands doing the things your mind naturally tries to avoid. Your potential isn't hidden behind talent or luck. It's hidden behind discomfort. This is why most people never reach their potential. They choose comfort so often that discomfort feels unbearable. Think about the people you admire, the people who seem disciplined and unstoppable. They don't have an easier mind than you. They don't have less fear or fewer doubts, or a magically cooperative brain. What they have is a habit. They repeatedly choose potential over comfort. They've trained themselves to act even when they don't feel like it. They've conditioned their mind to tolerate discomfort instead of running from it. Over time, their potential becomes stronger, and their comfort zone expands. You can do the same, but not by waiting to feel motivated. Motivation is temporary and influenced by emotion. Potential doesn't grow from emotion. It grows from discipline. The war inside your head is won not by big heroic moments, but by small consistent reminders that you are stronger than your impulses. When you force yourself to take action despite resistance, you weaken the power of comfort and strengthen the voice of your higher self. You begin to trust yourself. You begin to respect yourself. You begin to prove to yourself that you are capable of more than you thought. Your mind will always push you toward the easiest option. That's biology. But biology does not have to dictate your destiny. You can override it. You can recognize the internal pull toward comfort and consciously choose the opposite. The moment you do something uncomfortable on purpose, you shift the balance of power. You start breaking lifelong patterns that once controlled you. You stop being a passive participant in your life and start becoming an active creator of it. The real tragedy is not that people fail. It's that they never give themselves the chance to succeed because they fear discomfort more than regret. They delay change until their life collapses around them. They wait for the perfect moment that never arrives. They avoid challenges until avoidance becomes their identity. And then they wonder why life feels empty, stagnant, predictable, and unfulfilling. You are not meant to live inside the boundaries of your comfort zone forever. The life you want will always exist beyond the line your mind tells you not to cross. That is the truth most people never accept. If you want to reshape your life, you must be willing to challenge the side of your mind that fights for comfort. Not through force, but through repeated exposure. You make discomfort normal. You make discipline familiar. You make growth your default. The war between comfort and potential is never fully over. You don't overcome it once, you overcome it every day. But the more you choose potential, the more natural it becomes. Eventually, the life that once felt impossible becomes your new normal. And the comfort that once controlled you loses its power. You don't need to eliminate fear or resistance to win this war. You only need to stop obeying them. The moment you consistently choose the side of your potential, even when it's uncomfortable, you begin transforming into the person who was always hidden underneath your excuses. And that is when your real life finally begins. Chapter 4. How your thoughts turn against you. Your thoughts are supposed to guide you, support you, and help you make sense of the world. But the reality is far harsher. Your thoughts can turn into weapons that work against you. And the worst part is that this transformation happens quietly, gradually, without you noticing. You don't wake up one day and decide to sabotage yourself. It happens through repetition, conditioning, and habit. Over years, the mind learns patterns, most of them automatic, most of them inherited, most of them never questioned. Eventually, these patterns become your default way of thinking, and you mistake them for truth. The thoughts that limit you didn't appear overnight. They were built through experiences, fears, failures, and repeated emotional reactions. Every time you doubted yourself, every time you hesitated, every time you avoided something uncomfortable, you reinforced a pattern. The brain learns through repetition. Whatever you repeat becomes effortless. So if you've spent years practicing fear, doubt, overthinking, insecurity, or avoidance, those will become the dominant voices in your mind. And once those voices dominate, they shape how you see yourself and the world around you. This is when thoughts turn against you. Not because they're evil, but because they're automated. You've internalized them so deeply that they feel natural, familiar, even logical. You don't question them because questioning would require awareness and discomfort, two things your mind tries to avoid. So instead, you accept them. You let them dictate your choices. You treat them as facts. And without realizing it, you allow old patterns to control your present life. Overthinking is one of the clearest examples of thoughts becoming your enemy. At first, overthinking seems like caution, an attempt to avoid mistakes. But it quickly turns into paralysis. You start analyzing possibilities that don't matter. You create problems that don't exist. You try to predict outcomes that are impossible to know. The more you think, the less you act. And the less you act, the more powerless you feel. Overthinking doesn't protect you. It traps you. It replaces action with anxiety and progress with hesitation. Self-criticism is another thought pattern that attacks you from within. It begins subtly. A small dissatisfaction, a minor mistake, a moment of embarrassment. But over time, those moments pile up and form a harsh internal judge. That judge doesn't care about your growth. It doesn't care about fairness or accuracy. It only cares about reminding you of your flaws. It magnifies every weakness. It dismisses every strength. It makes you believe you're not good enough long before you even try. And once that belief settles in, it becomes extremely difficult to break. Then there are assumptions, thoughts that pretend to be truth. You assume people are judging you. You assume you'll fail. You assume that others are better. You assume that your past defines your future. But assumptions are nothing more than guesses shaped by fear. yet your mind treats them as facts. And because you trust your own thoughts, you behave as if those assumptions are real. This is how your mind creates limitations where none exist. You stop yourself not because you're incapable, but because your thoughts convinced you that you are. Your thoughts become enemies when you stop recognizing the difference between thinking and truth. A thought is just a signal. It's not a law. It's not a command. It's not a prophecy. But when thoughts repeat enough times, the mind begins to accept them as part of your identity. I'm not disciplined. I always mess things up. I'm not confident. I'm not smart enough. These statements are not facts. They are narratives. Narratives created by years of emotional reactions and repeated avoidance. But when you internalize them, they shape what you believe you can and cannot do. This is why some people sabotage their own success without realizing it. Their thoughts have convinced them they're not worthy of good things, so they push opportunities away. Their thoughts convince them they can't change, so they never attempt transformation. Their thoughts convince them that the world is hostile, so they isolate themselves. The enemy is not the outside world. It's the automatic thoughts inside your mind that you treat as truth. One of the most damaging patterns is the thought that discomfort equals danger. This belief is responsible for more dreams dying than failure ever will. Your mind interprets discomfort, fear, uncertainty, pressure, as a sign that something is wrong, but discomfort is simply the feeling of growth. The problem is that your mind doesn't know the difference between emotional discomfort and genuine danger. So when your thoughts tell you to step back, you obey. You retreat. You protect yourself from the very experiences that would have helped you grow stronger. Here's the truth your mind doesn't want to admit. Thoughts are habits, not reflections of reality. They are programmed responses created by repetition, not by facts. And once you understand this, you gain power. You realize that you're not fighting your true self. You're fighting old patterns. You're fighting outdated mental scripts written by fear, past trauma, insecurity, or childhood conditioning. These scripts are not you. They are just habits your mind learned. The key to regaining control is to shift from being inside your thoughts to observing them. When you step back and watch your thoughts instead of immediately believing them, everything changes. You start noticing how dramatic, irrational, or repetitive they are. You start recognizing patterns, how every time you want to improve your life, the same doubts appear. How every time you try something new, your mind generates the same fears. Awareness allows you to break the loop. Your thoughts lose their power when you challenge them. When you ask, is this true or just fear? Is this fact or assumption? Is this thought helping me or limiting me? The moment you question a thought, you weaken it. You create distance between yourself and the narrative. And in that distance, you gain the freedom to choose a different thought, a different action, a different identity. Thoughts will always come and go, but you don't have to obey every one of them. You don't have to accept them as truth. You don't have to surrender your life to old mental patterns. You can retrain your mind. You can reshape your internal dialogue. You can create new thought habits that support your growth instead of destroying it. Your mind turns against you only when you let it operate on autopilot. The moment you wake up to the patterns, you take back control. You stop letting your thoughts dictate your life, and you start using them as tools instead of chains. And once you master that, the battle inside your head becomes one you can finally win. Chapter 5. Breaking the Patterns. That control. You patterns run your life far more than your intentions ever will. You can want change, crave discipline, dream about a better version of yourself, and still stay stuck. Because wants don't change you. Patterns do. And most of the patterns that control you were formed years before you ever realized they existed. They were shaped by your fears, your habits, your reactions, and the environments you grew up in. The painful truth is this: you don't rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your patterns. If you want to break free from the internal war in your mind, you have to dismantle the structure that keeps you locked in place. Not by inspiration, not by brute force, but by understanding how your patterns were formed and learning how to disrupt them deliberately. Every destructive pattern begins the same way, with repetition. A moment of hesitation becomes a habit of hesitation. A single avoidance becomes a lifestyle of avoidance. Over time, the brain learns that this is your default reaction, not because it's good for you, but because it's familiar. And the brain loves familiarity, no matter how harmful it is. Your mind doesn't cling to what's healthy, it clings to what's predictable. That's why breaking patterns feels uncomfortable. You're not fighting your willpower, you're fighting your wiring. You're pushing against mental grooves that have been carved into you slowly, quietly, over years. When you choose a new behavior, your brain resists. It complains. It tries to drag you back into the old ways because the old ways require no mental energy. But the moment you start acting against your patterns, you begin rewriting the script your mind has been following. One of the biggest patterns people struggle with is avoidance. Avoidance feels safe. It gives you temporary relief. You convince yourself that you'll deal with things later. But avoidance is a liar. Every time you avoid something, an uncomfortable conversation, a responsibility, a new opportunity, you teach your mind that running away is the correct response to discomfort. That's why avoidance grows. The more you feed it, the stronger it becomes. Breaking avoidance doesn't require confidence. It doesn't require motivation. It requires action. Specifically, the action your mind resists the most. When your mind says later, do it now. When it says, I'm scared, move anyway. When it says, not ready, take the first step. You don't need to defeat fear. You only need to refuse to obey it. Every time you act against avoidance, you weaken the pattern. Every time you hesitate, you strengthen it. It's that simple. Another destructive pattern is emotional reaction. Most people don't respond to life, they react to it. They let their emotions decide for them. A moment of anxiety tells them to retreat. A moment of doubt tells them they aren't capable. A moment of discomfort tells them to stop. But emotions are temporary. They are waves, not truths. Acting based on emotion keeps you trapped because you're letting your lowest moments dictate your long-term path. To break emotional patterns, you have to introduce a pause. A moment of awareness between the emotion and the reaction. When something triggers you, fear, stress, insecurity, don't act immediately. Observe the emotion, let it rise and fall. Then choose your response intentionally. That pause is small, but it's powerful. It's where you reclaim control. Most people never pause long enough to see that their emotions are not commands. They are signals you can interpret, not orders you must obey. Then there is the pattern of self-neglect, the habit of choosing everything and everyone before yourself. This pattern convinces you that your needs can wait, your dreams can wait, your mental health can wait. It tells you that prioritizing yourself is selfish or unrealistic. But self-neglect slowly drains your energy, your confidence, and your sense of identity. You end up living reactively instead of purposefully. To break this pattern, you need boundaries, not just with other people, but with yourself. You need standards for how you treat your time, your goals, your mental space. You need to stop apologizing for prioritizing your own life. You are responsible for building the strongest version of yourself. No one else will do it for you. Another common pattern is perfectionism. Perfectionism is just fear in disguise. Fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of not being enough. Perfectionism convinces you to delay, to overthink, to avoid taking action until every detail is flawless. But perfect never arrives. The more you chase it, the more you stagnate. To break perfectionism, you must accept a fundamental truth. Progress is built on imperfection. You don't become great by starting perfectly. You become great by starting poorly and improving relentlessly. Your mind will resist this because imperfection feels threatening. But the moment you embrace imperfect action, the pattern of perfectionism begins to crumble. Breaking patterns also requires brutal honesty. You have to acknowledge how your behaviors have shaped your life. You have to admit that some of your struggles are not caused by outside forces, but by the repeating cycles inside you. This isn't about blaming yourself. It's about understanding yourself deeply enough to change. When you begin breaking patterns, you will feel resistance. That resistance is proof that you're doing something meaningful. If it feels uncomfortable, you're on the right path. Growth always feels like friction. But slowly, through repeated action, the resistance weakens. What once felt impossible becomes tolerable. What once felt unfamiliar becomes normal. What once required discipline becomes automatic. This is how patterns shift, from effort to routine. At its core, breaking patterns is about reclaiming control from the autopilot mode your mind has been operating in. It's about refusing to let old fears dictate your future. It's about taking back authority over your thoughts, your reactions, your habits, and your identity. You don't overcome patterns by thinking about them. You overcome them by acting in spite of them. Your future self is built from the patterns you choose today. If you want a life that feels different, you need patterns that behave differently. You need habits that match the person you want to become, not the person you've been. And the moment you start consistently choosing actions that align with growth, you begin rewriting the deepest parts of your mind. Breaking patterns is not easy, but staying trapped inside them is far harder. The war inside your head becomes winnable the day you stop obeying your old patterns and start creating new ones, deliberately, consistently, relentlessly. Every small shift is a victory, and those victories compound into transformation. Chapter 6: Reclaiming Control over your inner world. Control is not something you accidentally stumble into. It's something you take back piece by piece from a mind that has been running on autopilot for years. Most people don't realize this, but they aren't actually thinking, they're being thought. Their reactions, habits, fears, and impulses are controlling them, not the other way around. They move through life responding to internal noise without ever questioning where that noise comes from. You cannot win the war inside your head until you reclaim the authority your mind has quietly stolen from you. Your inner world, the space where your thoughts, emotions, beliefs, and patterns live, will shape your life more than anything external ever will. But if you don't deliberately manage it, it becomes chaotic. A chaotic inner world leads to chaotic decisions. Chaotic decisions lead to chaotic outcomes. And chaotic outcomes create a chaotic life. Most people attempt to fix the chaos outside without ever addressing the chaos inside. It doesn't work. You can change your environment, your relationships, your routines, or your goals, but if you don't change the internal patterns driving your behavior, you will recreate the same problems repeatedly. The first step in reclaiming control over your inner world is awareness. You cannot control what you refuse to acknowledge. Awareness means you start paying attention to the thoughts running through your mind instead of blindly reacting to them. It means noticing the moments when your mind tries to pull you into old patterns: hesitation, fear, self-doubt, distraction. Most people are so used to these moments that they treat them as part of their personality, but they're not. They are signals. They are reminders of unfinished internal battles. And when you start observing them instead of obeying them, you take the first step toward mastery. After awareness comes responsibility. You have to accept that your inner world is your responsibility, not your past, not your upbringing, not your circumstances, not the people around you. It's easy to blame external forces for your internal struggles, but blaming keeps you powerless. Responsibility is not about guilt, it's about control. The moment you say, "My mind is my responsibility," you take back power. You stop waiting for external solutions to internal problems. You stop expecting change to come from outside. You stop treating your emotions as fate. Responsibility gives you the leverage needed to reshape your inner world. Once you take responsibility, you must learn intentional behavior. Your mind has been trained through repetition, and it will only be retrained the same way. Every intentional choice you make reshapes your inner landscape. When you wake up early, even though your mind begs you to stay in bed, you're training control. When you choose discipline over distraction, you're training control. When you speak truth to yourself instead of letting insecurity speak for you, you're training control. Control is not a feeling. It's a pattern built from repeated choices. One of the most important skills in reclaiming your inner world is learning how to separate yourself from your emotions. Emotions are powerful, but they are not the truth. They are reactions, temporary waves triggered by thoughts, memories, or external events. The problem is that most people surrender to them instantly. When they feel anxious, they assume something is wrong. When they feel unmotivated, they assume it means they shouldn't act. When they feel insecure, they assume they are inadequate. These assumptions turn emotions into commands. You reclaim control when you stop treating emotions as instructions and start treating them as information. When anger rises, instead of reacting, you observe it. When fear appears, you question it. When discouragement hits, you analyze it instead of collapsing. You become the observer instead of the puppet. This doesn't erase the emotions, it simply prevents them from becoming your master. Another layer of reclaiming control is rewriting the beliefs that quietly govern your life. Every belief you hold about yourself, your abilities, your limits, your worth, acts as a filter. It shapes how you interpret experiences and what you believe is possible. Many of your beliefs were formed in childhood, through failures, through criticism, through fear, or through society's expectations. And because these beliefs are old and familiar, your mind treats them as absolute truth. To take control, you have to confront those beliefs ruthlessly. Ask yourself, who taught me this? Is this belief based on fact or fear? Does this belief serve me or limit me? Is this belief mine or something I inherited? Most limiting beliefs collapse when exposed to scrutiny because they were never rooted in truth. They were rooted in experience. And experiences are not definitions. One of the biggest turning points in reclaiming your inner world is learning to give your mind structure. Structure is the foundation of control. A mind without structure becomes overwhelmed, scattered, easily hijacked by emotion, and vulnerable to fear. Structure comes from routines, boundaries, priorities, and discipline. When you have structure, your mind has fewer opportunities to wander into destructive patterns. Discipline is not about punishment. It's about providing order so your mind cannot sabotage you as easily. But the most difficult and transformative part of reclaiming your inner world is consistency. Anyone can be disciplined for a day. Anyone can be focused for a moment. Anyone can feel motivated when the mood is right. But control is built in the moments when you feel none of that. It's built when you choose action despite resistance. When you choose clarity despite confusion. When you choose progress despite fear. When you choose discipline despite exhaustion. Your mind learns from repetition. If you repeatedly show it that you are in control, that you will act despite discomfort, fear, or doubt, it begins to respect you. It starts to quiet down. It becomes less chaotic, less reactive, less aggressive. You stop being dragged by your impulses and start directing them. This is how you transform from someone who feels helpless into someone who feels powerful. Reclaiming control over your inner world is not about becoming perfect. It's about becoming aware, intentional, disciplined, and consistent. It's about recognizing that the mind is a tool, and tools should be controlled, not obeyed blindly. When you learn to use your mind instead of letting it use you, the war inside your head becomes winnable. And once you win internally, there is nothing external that can overpower you again. Chapter 7. Becoming the person. Your mind can't break. There is a version of you that your current mind is not equipped to control. A version of you that cannot be manipulated by fear, crushed by doubt, silenced by insecurity, or derailed by old emotional patterns. That version of you doesn't crumble under pressure, doesn't retreat when things get difficult, and doesn't collapse into old habits the moment life gets heavy. But here's the truth. You won't reach that version of yourself by thinking about it. You reach it by building it, brick by brick, decision by decision, day by day. Becoming the person your mind can't break is not about eliminating fear or doubt. It's about becoming stronger than them. Fear will still appear. Doubt will still whisper. Insecurity will still surface. But they won't control you anymore. They'll be background noise, noticed but irrelevant. To reach that point, you must stop treating your mind as an authority and start treating it as something you command. This transformation begins with identity. Your mind is powerful because you've spent years identifying with its weakest voice. You say things like, I'm anxious, I'm undisciplined, I'm easily distracted, I'm not confident, as if these are fixed traits. They're not. They're patterns. And patterns can be rewritten. The moment you separate your identity from your weaknesses, you take away their power. You shift from, I am like this, to, I have been like this. And that small shift changes everything. It opens the door to change because it acknowledges that you are not your past behavior. You are the one who chooses your future behavior. Strength isn't built through comfort. It's built through intentional resistance. The same way muscles grow through stress, your character grows through challenge. If you avoid pressure, you avoid growth. If you avoid discomfort, you avoid transformation. Becoming unbreakable means you learn to lean into the very experiences your mind tries to shield you from. You become someone who faces discomfort instead of running from it. Someone who accepts responsibility instead of escaping it. Someone who acts even when everything inside you screams to stop. This process demands discipline, not the motivational, inspirational type people romanticize, but real discipline. The kind that feels boring, repetitive, and inconvenient. Discipline is simply choosing your long-term identity over your short-term impulses. When you choose discipline enough times, you build mental armor. Every time you show up when you don't feel like it, you grow. Every time you resist the easy option, you grow. Every time you complete a task your mind fought against, you grow. Discipline is the foundation of being unbreakable because it teaches your mind that you, not emotion, not comfort, not fear, are in control. Another key part of becoming unbreakable is learning how to manage adversity. Most people break because they interpret hardship as failure. They believe that if something is difficult, it means they're not capable. But adversity isn't a sign of weakness. It's a test. And tests exist to prepare you for the next level. The strongest people in the world didn't become strong by living easy lives. They became strong because they consistently faced challenges that forced them to grow. They didn't run from hardship. They used it. They turned it into experience, wisdom, resilience, and perspective. When your mind knows that hardship won't make you retreat, it stops using it against you. To become the person your mind can't break, you must also master your self-talk. Your internal dialogue is the constant soundtrack of your life. If it's harsh, defeatist, or fearful, you will live with a weak mindset. But you don't need to become fake positive. You simply need to become truthful. Self-talk should be grounded, realistic, and supportive. Not delusional, not toxic, not exaggerated. The goal isn't to lie to yourself, it's to stop lying against yourself. Instead of saying, "I can't do this," you say, "I will try regardless." Instead of saying, "This is too hard," you say, "This is supposed to be hard." Instead of saying, "I'm not good enough," you say, "I'm learning." Instead of saying, "I always fail," you say, "I'm not finished." This type of self-talk doesn't deny difficulty, it repositions it. It teaches your mind that struggle is not a signal to stop, it's a signal to grow. And once your mind learns that, its ability to break you decreases dramatically. Another trait of people who become unbreakable is emotional stability. Emotional stability doesn't mean you don't feel negative emotions. It means you don't let them dictate your behavior. You can be afraid and still act. You can be hurt and still move forward. You can be uncertain and still make decisions. Emotional stability is built by repeatedly choosing logic over impulse, values over feelings, consistency over chaos. To reach this level, you must stop giving emotions unlimited access to your behavior. Emotions should be acknowledged, understood, and respected, but never worshipped. You feel them, but you don't become them. With enough repetition, your emotional reactions weaken and your inner strength becomes automatic. Becoming unbreakable also requires you to stop negotiating with your excuses. Excuses are mental escape plans your mind creates to protect you from effort or accountability. The moment you start arguing with your excuses, you've already lost. They are designed to sound convincing. They will always feel reasonable, even when they are sabotaging you. The solution is simple. Stop engaging with them. When you make a decision, follow through without debate. Your excuses only survive when you feed them attention. A final part of becoming the person your mind can't break is mastery over your environment. You can't build inner strength while surrounding yourself with people, habits, or environments that reinforce your weaknesses. If you want to become unbreakable, you must design a life that supports your strongest self. That includes setting boundaries, protecting your time, limiting distractions, and surrounding yourself with people who push you forward, not pull you backward. Growth is not a coincidence. It is engineered. When you combine all of this, identity, discipline, adversity, emotional stability, self-talk, boundaries, you build a version of yourself your mind can no longer manipulate. A version that acts independently of fear. A version that doesn't collapse when life gets heavy. A version that doesn't return to old patterns because discomfort appears. A version that moves forward relentlessly even when progress is slow. This version of you exists. It isn't imaginary. It isn't unreachable. It's built through the daily decisions your current mind tries to avoid. And once you reach it, once you become the person your mind can't break, you win the war inside your head permanently. Not because the enemy disappears, but because it no longer has the power to control you. Chapter 8. When your mind finally becomes your ally. There comes a point in this internal war where something begins to shift. Not suddenly, not dramatically, but unmistakably. After all the battles you fought, against fear, against doubt, against hesitation, against old patterns, you begin to notice that the mind which once worked against you is no longer resisting you in the same way. It doesn't pull as hard. It doesn't sabotage as quickly. It doesn't crumble at the slightest sign of discomfort. Slowly, the enemy inside your head starts turning into an ally. And this transformation marks the beginning of a new life. Your mind was never designed to be your enemy. It only became one because it was trained in the wrong direction. Years of fear, avoidance, insecurity, stress, emotional reaction, and past experiences shaped it into a force that protected you from growth instead of guiding you toward it. But the mind is adaptable. It can evolve, it can unlearn, it can be reconditioned. And once you've spent enough time challenging your automatic thoughts, breaking destructive patterns, choosing discipline over impulse, and refusing to surrender to fear, the mind begins to adapt to this new reality. The first sign that your mind is becoming your ally is the absence of internal resistance. Tasks that used to feel heavy now feel neutral. Decisions that once triggered anxiety begin to feel manageable. You stop negotiating with yourself. You stop fighting your own impulses. You stop needing motivation to act. Instead of hearing, "not today," or "later," or "I can't," you begin to hear silence. And silence is powerful. Silence is the space where discipline replaces resistance. Another sign is clarity. When your mind is your enemy, everything feels cloudy. You overthink, you doubt, you second-guess, you talk yourself out of opportunities. But when your mind becomes your ally, clarity becomes your default state. You see things for what they are, not through the lens of fear, but through the lens of logic. Problems appear solvable instead of overwhelming. Challenges feel like puzzles rather than threats. Decisions feel grounded instead of chaotic. Clarity happens when your mind stops projecting fear and starts reflecting truth. The next shift comes in your emotional reactions. When your mind is against you, emotions control you. You feel something and you immediately react. But when your mind becomes an ally, you feel something and pause. You're calm under pressure. You're stable under stress. You no longer collapse when discomfort shows up. You understand that emotions rise and fall, but your decisions don't have to rise and fall with them. This emotional stability makes you almost unrecognizable to your past self. Eventually, your thoughts begin aligning with your goals rather than attacking them. You start having thoughts like, "Let's get this done. I can handle this. This is difficult, but I can move through it. One step at a time. I've done harder things before." These thoughts aren't forced. You're not pretending. They arise naturally because your mind has learned through repetition that you act regardless of fear. The mind starts supporting what you consistently choose. And since you've chosen discipline, strength, and growth, your mind begins to reflect exactly that. Another major change happens in how you relate to discomfort. In the past, discomfort triggered avoidance. Now, discomfort signals progress. You no longer see it as a threat, you see it as training. When something feels challenging, you lean into it instead of away from it. You understand that discomfort is the gateway to expansion, not a warning sign. When your mind supports this understanding, The fear that once crippled you loses its influence. Opportunities also start appearing differently. When your mind was your enemy, opportunities felt intimidating. They triggered self-doubt, insecurity, and hesitation. You felt like you weren't ready, weren't capable, or weren't qualified. But once your mind becomes your ally, opportunities feel aligned. They feel like invitations instead of threats. Instead of thinking, "What if I fail?" you begin thinking, "What if this works?" Instead of assuming the worst, you consider the possibility of success. This shift in perception changes everything you chase, accept, and achieve in life. One of the most empowering signs that your mind has become your ally is your relationship with failure. Failure no longer breaks you. It no longer defines you. It no longer triggers shame or paralysis. Instead, failure becomes feedback. You study it. You learn from it. You adapt. You grow. You understand that failure is a normal part of the journey, not a reflection of your worth. When your mind stops catastrophizing every mistake, you stop fearing action, and that freedom expands your life dramatically. There is also a deep, growing sense of self-respect. When you consistently keep promises to yourself, your mind begins to trust you. The inner conflict quiets down. You stop fighting yourself. You stop doubting yourself. You stop treating yourself like someone unreliable. This self-respect builds confidence, not the loud bragging kind, but the quiet, grounded kind. The kind that doesn't need validation because it comes from consistency. Eventually, your mind begins anticipating strength instead of weakness. It expects you to follow through. It expects you to handle challenges. It expects you to rise instead of collapse. This expectation turns into identity. You become someone who simply does the hard things. Someone who doesn't quit. Someone who doesn't negotiate with weakness. Someone who is reliable, disciplined, consistent, and resilient. At this stage, the war inside your head is no longer a war, it's a partnership. Your mind becomes the same force that once fought you, but now it fights with you. It helps you solve problems faster. It supports your goals instead of resisting them. It pushes you instead of holding you back. It guides you instead of confusing you. It protects your progress instead of sabotaging it. This is the end goal of all the internal battles you've been fighting. Not perfection, not the disappearance of negative thoughts, but transformation. You don't defeat your mind, you retrain it. You teach it through consistent action that you are the authority, you are the leader, and you are the builder of your future. And when that happens, the war inside your head doesn't end. It evolves. You're no longer fighting to survive. You're fighting to grow, to expand, to dominate your potential. Your mind becomes a weapon instead of a weakness, a tool instead of a trap, a teammate instead of an enemy. When you reach this point, you become unstoppable, not because you're fearless, but because your fear no longer controls you. Not because life gets easier, but because you get stronger. Not because the mind quiets down completely, but because its voice finally aligns with the person you were always meant to become. This is what it means to win the war inside your head. This is the version of you that your old self could only imagine. And once you reach it, you never go back. You've now seen the truth most people spend their entire lives avoiding. The real battle was never out there. It was never your circumstances, never the people around you, never the opportunities you did or didn't get. The real war has always been inside your head, between who you are and who you're capable of becoming, between fear and discipline, between comfort and potential, between old patterns and new identity. Most people lose this war because they never stop to see what's actually happening. They live on autopilot, controlled by thoughts they didn't choose, emotions they don't question, habits they don't challenge, and beliefs they never examine. They keep waiting for life to change while refusing to change the one thing that governs everything: their mind. You are no longer one of those people. By understanding the lies your mind tells you, by recognizing the patterns that once trapped you, by choosing discipline over impulse, by facing discomfort instead of running from it, and by taking full responsibility for your inner world, you've done what most people never do. You've stepped into awareness. You've stepped into control. You've stepped into the identity of someone who refuses to be controlled by the weaker parts of their mind. There will still be battles. There will still be fear, there will still be doubts. But now you know something you didn't know before. These things don't have to define you. They don't have to dictate your decisions. They don't have to shape your future. They are simply signals you can observe instead of obstacles you must obey. You are building a mind that works with you, not against you. A mind that supports your ambition instead of sabotaging it. A mind that pushes you forward instead of holding you back. A mind that grows stronger every time you choose action over avoidance, clarity over confusion, discipline over emotion. This is the beginning of a new version of you. A version grounded, resilient, disciplined, intentional, and unshakable. A version who no longer buckles under pressure or collapses into old habits. A version who doesn't wait for permission or inspiration. A version who chooses growth, even when it's uncomfortable. The war inside your head will never disappear completely, but now you have the advantage. You know the terrain, you know the enemy, you know the weapons, and most importantly, you know who you are becoming. Walk forward with that knowledge, live from that identity. And never forget, the moment your mind becomes your ally, nothing, internal or external, can stop you again.